Good evening, and welcome to the Crypto Overnighter. I'm Nicodemus, and I will be your host as we take a look at the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. And remember, none of this is financial advice. And it's 10 p.m. on a Friday, May the 5th, 2023. And happy Cinco de Mayo to those of you who celebrate. The Biden administration released a national standards strategy on May the 4th. They outline a plan to prioritize standards development in 8 areas, including digital identity infrastructure and distributed ledger technologies. So the goal of this strategy is to protect U.S. consumers and the country's role in developing international standards. This strategy will bolster investment in the pre-standardization research in critical areas identified. It will also encourage private sector and academic participation in that research, invest in training, and ensure integrity and inclusivity. One of the key areas of focus in the strategy is digital identity. The National Institute of Standards and Technology defines digital identity as the unique representation of a subject engaged in an online transaction. That's according to a NIST document now under review. Digital identity is, quote, unique in the context of a digital service, but does not necessarily need to uniquely identify the subject in all contexts. One obvious use of digital identity should immediately come to mind is Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering regulations. Regulators and enforcement agencies are demanding greater AML compliance in the crypto industry. Blockchain solutions are being actively developed in this area. Innovations such as zero-knowledge KYC verification have been proposed to carry AML verification, credit scoring, and similar information. Passporting techniques using soul-bound NFTs have been deployed to make off-chain identity accessible. Privacy issues are deeply entwined with digital identity, and they are areas where the government and the crypto industry have yet to reach an accord. The national strategy suggests the like of DLT and digital infrastructure would increasingly impact and be widely used in the economic sector. DLT can be especially useful in building cybersecurity and privacy-based features and services. Some key areas where these technologies will be actively tested include automated and connected infrastructure, such as smart communities and the Internet of Things. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is taking a stand against a potential central bank digital currency from the federal government. DeSantis is widely considered to be a possible presidential candidate in 2024. He has said that he believes a CBDC would give the government too much power over people's finances. He spoke at a press conference on May 2nd when he said, quote, Florida rejects the idea of a central bank digital currency. You could just get fined and they'll just take it right out of your digital currency without any due process. And so it gives the government a huge amount of power over your economic self-sufficiency and independence. DeSantis is one of many concerned about the potential of a CBDC, because some experts have warned that a CBDC could be used to track people's spending habits and even control their access to goods and services. The Biden administration said that it is still exploring the possibility of creating a CBDC, but it has not made any final decision. It is unclear whether a CBDC would be legal under current law. In the meantime, DeSantis is moving forward with legislation in Florida that would ban the use of a CBDC in the state, similar to the North Carolina bill we were talking about last night. The Florida bill will be on DeSantis' desk within the next few weeks. Recently, Montana Governor Greg Gianforte signed a bill into law. This bill essentially prevents local governments from passing laws prohibiting cryptocurrency mining. It enshrines the rights of miners in the state by revising existing laws, prohibiting discriminatory electrical rates for mining firms, and not allowing the taxation of crypto to be used as a payment method. The bill was introduced partly as a preventative measure in response to specific proposals in other states. In April, lawmakers in the Texas State Senate introduced a limit on crypto miners' incentives. Now, this was through a program intended to compensate them for the state's power grid load reductions, shutting down their business when they could be earning. Satoshi Action Fund is a cryptocurrency advocacy group supporting pro-mining legislation in some states. Lawmakers in Arkansas passed a bill similar to Montana's. Dennis Porter is the Satoshi Action Fund's CEO. He said that Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders has already signed the bill into law. I don't know about that. I just know the legislature's website did not show such a change at the time of writing. Porter said, quote, "At the state level, we can have a lot of progress. We can move things forward, and there isn't a whole lot the federal government can do in the meantime." Similar pro-mining legislation has been moving forward in the Mississippi state legislature. That bill died in March. Porter said that a Missouri bill was a little further behind in the process, but still progressing in the legislature. At the federal level, it was a topic the other night when the Biden administration renewed a push for a 30% tax on cryptocurrency miners as a part of their budget proposal. The tax is intended to put crypto out of business by targeting miners' electricity usage. Zimbabwe's central bank plans to sell a gold-backed digital currency to investors starting on May 8th. The tokens will be sold at a minimum price of $10 for individuals and a minimum of $5,000 for corporations and other entities. The digital currency, called the Zim dollar, will be backed by physical gold held by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. The tokens will be stored in digital wallets. They'll be used for both domestic and international transactions. The introduction of the Zim dollar is part of the government's efforts to stabilize the country's economy. They've been getting hammered by hyperinflation and currency instability for years. In 2009, Zimbabwe abandoned their currency. They adopted the US dollar in their effort to curb inflation. However, the US dollar has become increasingly scarce in the country, which has led to many businesses accepting cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. The introduction of the Zim dollar, as it's called, is seen as a way to provide Zimbabweans with a more stable and accessible form of currency. The tokens will be backed by physical gold. Right now, gold is a more stable asset than the US dollar. Additionally, the tokens will be stored in digital wallets, making them more accessible than cash. Whether the Zim dollar will ultimately stabilize the Zimbabwean economy remains to be seen. However, introducing the tokens is a positive step towards providing Zimbabweans with a more stable and accessible currency. Now, meanwhile, Kenya's finance ministry has proposed a 3% tax on the transfer of digital assets. This tax would apply to all digital asset transactions, including cryptocurrency exchanges and digital wallets. The proposed tax is part of the government's efforts to regulate the crypto industry in Kenya. The government has been concerned about the potential for money laundering and other criminal activity involving crypto. The tax is intended to generate revenue for the government. They estimate that this tax could generate up to $100 million annually. The proposed tax has been met with mixed reactions from the crypto community. Some people believe the tax is too high, that it will discourage people from using cryptocurrencies in Kenya. Others believe that the tax is necessary to regulate the industry and generate revenue for the government. The government is expected to finalize the proposed tax in coming months. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm going to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps in drawing new attention to the show. So thank you. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says the company is 100% committed to the U.S. market despite all the regulatory uncertainty. Armstrong was on an earnings call on May 5th, and he said that Coinbase is heartened, his words, to see more bipartisan support for coming crypto legislation and hopes to advocate for a rules-based industry. Armstrong expressed concern about the unpredictable enforcement actions of the SEC. No big surprise, given that Coinbase was served with a Wells notice by the securities regulator in late March. Quote, "Despite our ongoing engagement with the Commission, they have not been as clear about what their specific concerns are with Coinbase as we might like. And so, I have to refrain from speculating too much. It's especially difficult to predict the timeline of any potential SEC litigation that we might face." So all of this led to Coinbase filing an action in a U.S. federal court seeking to compel the SEC to answer a petition that has been pending since July. Some speculate the regulatory environment was the reason that Coinbase launched Coinbase International Exchange on May 2nd. Some pundits believe that Coinbase is looking for an escape route from the U.S. The exchange is open to customers in 30 countries worldwide, including Singapore, Hong Kong, El Salvador, Philippines, Thailand, and Bermuda, where Coinbase International is licensed. The United States is not on that list. Armstrong said that the European Union is in front regarding regulatory progress with its markets and crypto assets regulation set to go into effect mid-next year or early 2025. Armstrong said, quote, "They've adopted comprehensive crypto legislation called MiCA. Creates a single clear rulebook for the entire region. It's pretty powerful." These remarks come as Coinbase increased its first quarter revenue by 22% while slashing its net income loss by over $475 million to $79 million. Coinbase significantly narrowed its net loss in the first quarter of this year. This was due in part to robust earnings from retail investor trading activity. The company's net loss fell from $557 million in Q4 2022 to just $79 million in the first quarter. This is partially attributed to a 22% increase in revenue up to $736 million. These results beat expectations from some analysts. This led to a 7% spike in Coinbase's share price in after-hours trading. Transaction revenue from its institutional base increased 66% to over $22.3 million. In comparison, transaction revenue from retail investors increased 14% to $352.1 million. Overall, transaction revenue increased 16% quarter to quarter to $375 million. That said, trading volumes remained largely flat. Interest income and blockchain rewards from staking brought in the most revenue for the quarter, and the percentage of revenue from Bitcoin and Ether trades remained almost identical over the quarter. The firm is inching closer to profitability following a tumultuous 2022. Coinbase said that the quarter represented a turning point toward building a more efficient and financially disciplined firm. Quote, "We reduced costs, doubled down on operational excellence and risk management, and continue to drive product innovation and regulatory clarity. Our efforts are showing meaningful progress. Our teams are smaller, but more nimble than ever, and we are pleased with the pace of innovation and the results we're seeing." Coinbase cut staff by 18% last June, and then another 20% in January to ensure that the firm maintains an appropriate level of operational efficiency, according to Armstrong. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. If you enjoyed tonight's show, then please like, follow, subscribe, leave a rating or a review. And in the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow night.